hear us. The first item is public comments. People are welcome to go to the microphone and make public comments. You have 3 minutes, and you can also comment on every agenda item. Are there any public comment? The consent agenda. We have minutes of the March 1st work session and regular meetings, statements and checks, and the treasurer's report from March. A motion.
Support.
Motion Gerald Rowe, support Eldridge to approve the consent agenda. Are there questions or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Winters, is there any general legal update?
I just turned on my microphone. The only other,
You turned it off.
is it on or off?
That's on. There you go.
Okay. Anyways, the only update I was going to really just talk for a minute or two. I sent out a letter today. You may not have had a chance to look at it yet, but it goes hand in hand with some of the issues we face as a township board, opportunity index, et cetera, in that Clark East Towers is our one affordable senior apartment complex that's been in the township, I think, for over 50 years. And we've always, we've had issues at different times that we've worked out. But the issue that I was bringing up in today's letter was that the township pilot tax ordinance for Clark East Towers will expire in February of 2028. Now, that sounds like a long time away, but again, the concern is right now, there has been in Washtenaw County, and I attached some of the articles, there's been over 701 units that have gone from the affordable to market rate during the last few years. One example was the Cross Street Village senior apartment complex on Cross Street. It used to be the old Ypsilanti High School. And so this past February, when I was speaking with the NCR tax accountant in regards to the pilot payment that she makes to Stan's office, there's two payments. One's for a pilot payment in lieu of taxes, and the second check is for a municipal service agreement that partially offsets our costs for police and fire. I initiated the conversation as to when they would maybe want to start talking about extending that tax exemption ordinance. It's only for Clark East Towers, but at the same time, again, the number of units that are there and the history is such that, in my letter today, I mentioned that every board carves out its own legacy. And I think, again, right now, as you continue to see other parts of Washtenaw County somewhat slow walk the recommendations of the affordable housing economic equity recommendation in 2015, I don't think it's too early to start having this conversation with Clark East Towers. And so during that conversation in February, she did indicate that they normally would start having this conversation about this time next year. But rather than waiting until we find ourselves in midterm of this current board, I think it would be prudent to at least try and have this conversation even this summer. Only because, again, many people who were living at Cross Street Village found themselves in a position where many of them had to move, have moved elsewhere. Some actually moved to Clark East Towers, and some actually were on a waiting list at Clark East Towers. And so, again, that's our only senior housing in the township that is impacted by this specific ordinance. And again, time goes by too fast. I can tell you firsthand, I can't believe how fast the years go by. And, it may sound like a long time away, so why worry about it, Doug? Well, because a few more years, you're into a different situation, scenario. The number of units continue to be reduced because of the rising housing costs, I think in part driven by the city of Ann Arbor. And so I just would like to lock that down for another 15 years and extend that out to 2043 if at all possible, because that would give everybody, I think, here on this board a sense of ownership that whatever paths you may take down the road, we at least have kept in place that is a senior housing option, because that's the only one we really have. It allows a lot of people in this community to stay in the community, be near their children, grandchildren, extended family members. And I just think it's the right thing to do, and I don't think it's too early to at least see what conversations we can have, because in the past we've not always, we have a very good relationship with NCR now, but in the past sometimes there were things that were not so good in terms of communication. But now I think is a good time to move and make sure we're proactive in that regard. So that was my thought behind the letter that went out today.
All right. Thank you. Under new business, we have the first reading of Resolution 2022-03, which is proposed ordinance 2022-499 to amend the Township Fireworks Ordinance. Clerk Rowe?
I have Resolution 2022-04, amending the Charter Township Code of Ordinances to amend Section 42-210B entitled Prohibition on Use of Consumer Fireworks, whereas on February 15, 2022, Ypsilanti Township Supervisor Brenda L. Stembo sent a memorandum addressed to the Charter Township of Ypsilanti Board of Trustees dated February 9, 2022, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated by reference, wherein she requested that the Township Board to meet to amend the Township's fireworks ordinance so as to allow individuals in the Township to discharge fireworks within the Township on June 19th, also known as the Juneteenth holiday. And whereas Juneteenth is a federal holiday which recognizes and celebrates June 19th, 1866, which is the first day that African Americans in Texas learned of the Emancipation Proclamation, which was more than 2 years from when it was initially issued by President Abraham Lincoln. And whereas the Ypsilanti Township Board of Trustees is in agreement with the recommendation of the Ypsilanti Township Supervisor Brenda L. Stembo that the Township's fireworks ordinance be amended so as to allow persons to, quote, ignite, discharge, or use consumer fireworks within the Township on Juneteenth of each year, quote, commencing on June 19, 2022, and whereas the proposed ordinance 2022-499 adds a new Section 6 to Section 42-410B so as to allow persons in the Township to ignite, discharge, or use consumer fireworks within the Township on June 19th after 11 a.m. until 1 a.m. on June 20th. Now therefore it be resolved that the Charter Township of Ypsilanti of Board of Trustees hereby adopts and incorporates by reference the attached ordinance number 2022-04, which ordinance amends Section 42-210B of Charter Township of Ypsilanti's Code of Ordinances entitled Fireworks, so as to allow persons in the Township to ignite, discharge, or use consumer fireworks within the Township on June 19th after 11 a.m. until 1 a.m. on June 20th. I would so move the ordinance.
Support Peterson.
Resolution.
Motion by Joe Rowe, support Peterson, to amend the fireworks ordinance as we discussed at the last meeting, and this is in alignment with New Year's Day and the celebration on New Year's Eve timeframe. So this was brought forward by two people. One was a young man who requested that we have fireworks to celebrate the Juneteenth holiday. This is before it was a holiday. It was a year before the holiday. And then we had our first Juneteenth event last year, and this is appropriate to bring to the board and amend the ordinance. We also had a resident contact us that was concerned about getting in trouble for celebrating. So this will allow everyone to celebrate the Juneteenth holiday. Any questions or comments? We have to do a roll call vote. Swanson? Yes. Peterson? Newman?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Gerald Rowe?
Yes.
Stumbo votes yes. Eldridge?
Yes.
And Wilson Jr.?
Yes.
This approves the first reading. We'll have the second reading in a month or so.
Yeah.
Not at the next meeting,
The one after.
the one after. Number 2 is a request for the board to consider the intergovernmental agreement with the city of Ypsilanti. This is,
So move.
we have a motion by Gerald Rowe, support by Wilson, to approve this. This is the agreement on the walking, finally, the path that comes from the city of Ypsilanti connecting to Ypsi Township over the bridge. The city of Ypsilanti will do the snow removal on the path, and the township will do the mowing per the map. That's a large map, there's a lot of grass, and it was discussed exactly what was going to be mowed. It's one swath, or about 8 feet or 10 feet, whatever the mower is. And there's wildflowers that have to be protected. But this actually, MDOT requires this as part of their grant that Representative Ronnie Peterson was able to get to make this a reality. So we have a motion and support to approve the agreement and authorize the signing. Any questions or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3 is a request to approve an updated Recreation Director job description and approve interim Director John Hines to the position of Recreation Director.
So move.
Motion Gerald Rowe,
Support Peterson.
support Peterson. This was discussed at length at the work session. Want to make sure there's clarity with the Park Commission and that we really, this position and Mike Hoffmeister continue to work with the Park Commission and the communication and workflow and approvals and whatnot, inclusive of the Park Commission. Is there any other, Mr. John Hines was here, and there was an emergency at the community center with one of the attendants. So John had to be the attendant while she went to the hospital. Huh? No. All right, we have a motion of support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4 is a request to approve the Ypsilanti Township CBDG application for 2022. Motion Swanson. Motion Swanson, supported by Wilson Jr. This is the Community Development Block Grant. It originally was going to be allocated for Washtenaw Avenue. We get these funds in coordination with county, and they come from the federal government to the county, and the county helps administer this for us. And these funds in the past, as was discussed in the work session, were used for several parks in Ypsi Township. And it has to be in the low to moderate income level. And Apple Ridge is also on the master plan as to be replaced or repaired and, not repaired, replaced and enhanced. This allows us to proceed, and then they will meet and work with the Park Commission and on the design and everything. So I'm happy to see this happen. It also will provide an opportunity for Willow Run Acres possibly to do a garden and in the park, as we discussed previously. That will come back to the township board as well. So lots of good things happening. Any questions or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is a request to formally approve Forbes staging site at 1600 Davis Street.
So move.
We have a motion by Gerald Rose, support by Eldridge to approve the agreement. As discussed, this is the old Forbes dry cleaner, which is being cleaned up by the state of Michigan by Eagle, and this will allow them to park the equipment there that needs to be utilized for the cleanup effort. And as Mr. Winters stated and requested, is that they use pine wood, which is a good idea. And we appreciate that. So this is moving finally, and we really appreciate the state of Michigan who has helped in brownfield. Is brownfield dollars being used as well? So, any questions or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is a request to approve a letter of agreement between firefighters Local 1830 and the Charter Township of Ypsilanti to appoint Steve Walgren as temporary fire marshal.
So, okay,
Motion Eldred, support Jim Wilson. Is that what I heard?
yep.
Is there questions or comments on this? I've known Steve Walgren for a long time, and he actually used to negotiate contracts, and he's a great firefighter and will be a great fire marshal as well. And the chief left, but I really wanted to thank him for a lot of his leadership and what he's done since he's been here to bring regional fire and really high standards to the fire marshal position as well, to make sure, because he was a fire marshal before he came here, and to make sure the certifications are there and the qualifications, because this position does review site plans. And you have to know, how to do, that's a technical skill that you have to know, and the previous fire marshal is going to actually help teach this part of it, as well as him receiving the certifications that are necessary to perform the job. In the past, the people who were in this position were in the DROP program, which is a 5-year, so you retire, then you go in the DROP, and then you're done. This, currently Steve Walgren is not in the DROP, which means he can serve longer, which will help long-term with the building department and the fire department and the health and safety aspect of this position. So this is good news as well. Questions or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is budget amendment number 4. Clerk Joe Rowe.
I have a motion to amend the 2022 budget amendment number 4. I would move to increase the recreation fund budget by $4,725 to $721,335 and approve the department line item changes as outlined. I would so move the budget amendment.
Support Peterson.
We have motion and support to approve the budget amendment. Questions or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business? And we gave board member updates in the work session. Is there anything else?
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I apologize again for my absence in the work session, and I just would like to, on behalf of our ARPA committee, provide an update. Briefly, our group continues to meet and has had several internal meetings scheduled, and we've met a couple times since our last board meeting. And those just help us continue to understand and learn more about the ARPA funds. We do have ARPA public engagement dates that are tentatively set for April. Those will be advertised in a number of ways, one hopefully being the Y-Town magazine, if we can make that deadline, as well as a mailer that would go out to our residents and social media notification. We continue to take in emails and phone calls from residents with feedback, and we're very thankful for that. We all appreciate it very much. We are meeting with organizations upon request. And last but not least, and probably the most exciting, is that we've distributed 15,000 ARPA masks and then 16,000 masks from the county for a total of 31,000 masks in the last 2 weeks. So that's over 2,200 masks per day. So we're super excited about that, and a special thanks to the township staff who really support that effort, as well as our supervisor, Brenda Stumbo, who won't leave me alone about distributing that. No, I'm kidding. She's great and is out there every day. So we're thankful for her, as well as everyone else on this board who's helped participate in that. And again, a special thanks to the township staff. I don't think there's a single staff person within this building and across the township who hasn't helped in one way or another. So we're very thankful for our team here. That'll conclude our report.
When we distribute the mask, there's a letter in there, and they can ask for test kits, and delivered, I think, over 1,000 of them from this distribution, going door to door and handing them to people. And Trustee Swanson and her husband always help as well. Gloria Peterson delivered to churches. They have requested them. So people are still wearing masks, and they still want masks, and they appreciate it. They need it to go into doctor's appointments, any kind of nursing. If they are flying on an airplane, they're still required. So there's still, and they're good for 3 years. So they will have it at their home. And if they want more, all they have to do is call, and we will run whatever they need out to us. And they also have been emailing the ARPA committee from that. So it's very rewarding, very eye-opening, and you can see a lot of the needs in the community and the isolation of our residents who haven't had a lot of, contact since the pandemic. I think this, has been very traumatic on a lot of people, but our seniors and our children have been greatly affected by it. So we'll keep going and getting input in the ARPA committee. I appreciate what you guys are doing. So we're slowly going at it and gathering the necessary input that we need. So I appreciate that.
So can I ask a clarifying question about the AATA? I know it was suggested that we might want to do a resolution. Is that something that we have to agree to tonight because meetings are coming up and then a resolution gets drafted? Or how do we do that? Because we talked about it and we had some people say they could support that, but we didn't really, how soon would a resolution like that need to be drafted?
That's a good question because we are meeting with them Thursday on the increase. Trustee Wilson, you weren't at the work session, neither was Clerk Rowe, but we discussed having an actual, when Mr. Winters sent a letter, like taking a position officially via resolution. So I think that's a good point, Trustee Swanson, that we direct the supervisor, not the supervisor, I guess I could, but the attorney to do it.
I would offer a motion that we prepare a resolution through the supervisor's office and the attorney. It could be distributed for electronic signing prior to Thursday's meeting. Did you put a resolution together?
We do that.
Yeah, I thought we
Good
were,
idea.
I thought we talked about the possibility of just withdrawing.
Oh, the possibility of withdrawing and just doing, yeah, we did talk about, so maybe for the next meeting, do a resolution after our meeting, because we need to find out, this board, and Heather and
When is the meeting?
maybe we just need to hear from you, but we directly told them, don't increase the taxes. That was our position of our entire board.
Right.
And we just want to make sure that that's still the position of the entire board as we go into the meetings with them.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just said I'm definitely on board with not agreeing to this millage. I think when they came, we told them, we gave a presentation that had all these different, worst, better, best, and we said, we don't like any of the increases. Our residents can't take no more tax increases. So
And we just want to clarify that, right? And we just want to make sure, and I know.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in support. I know that you guys talked about this at the work session. I'm sorry I wasn't there, but when we all met internally, Brenda, Stan, and I, it could have not been more clear that, we don't feel like this is the right thing to do for our residents, and it just wasn't received. But I did want to just bring us back to a timeline. The AATA board will need to approve a millage rate and a date and ballot language, and if they select to go in August, the deadline for that ballot language would be May. And it says in their memo here that the final approval is requested by April 21st. So I'm happy to do Stan's suggestion, but I also think we possibly have enough time to bring it back to the next board, but.
So if we do, well, I guess my thought is, if we do, a resolution would take a long time, not a long time, but if we went Thursday, if you all went Thursday with the idea of withdrawing and proposed the idea of withdrawing, what what would that do? That would probably get their attention because they can't go forward. And I think from this board, we're in agreement that we're not proposing to move forward. So to me, whatever is the strongest way to convey the message for them to get this Thursday from you all, I would be in support of.
I'm concerned that we find ourselves again in a situation where, thank you for the clarity around the agreement, Attorney Leonard. But again, we find ourselves in a situation where there's already agreement, an agreement paper. I wouldn't call it agreement, but we had zoning that was in place, and then entities don't respect our our residents, because these are things that are in agreement for the township. It isn't about the seven of us. These are agreements that are about the best interests of the residents that were done at the time. And then when they're not respected, it gets played in a way, well, the township isn't in favor of public transit. No, we've already made a commitment to that because we were in an agreement in the first place. Or the township doesn't want to make sure people have testing, which is not true. We were begging for testing, and it didn't get put over here. So I'm just frustrated with this idea that governmental units are supposed to work together, especially governmental units that have coverage for the same residents. So it's very frustrating to have things that are in place that are meant to have those negotiations and those things take place so it doesn't cause disturbances and unrest for residents unnecessarily. We're here to represent people. I'm not hearing anybody say we don't care about public transportation and public transit. But we were clear when they did that presentation about what our concerns are. Our actions have demonstrated that we are very concerned about the tax rate for our residents. And it's only increasing in severity because of what's going on in the world. So, and I can stand behind that, but the messaging is everything. Like, we told them no. We have an agreement that people didn't come to us and say, here's what we want to do negotiations. Coming and doing a presentation and telling us, we're going to do this with that. That's not what that language said that Attorney Leonard shared with us tonight. And so I am very concerned that this is a situation where there's going to be turmoil. That's turmoil that is unnecessary. It is fabricated turmoil based on entities not working together and doing the things that they need to do to represent people well. I'm very troubled by that. So whatever we've got to do, and again, I'm not about like attention seeking. I'm not trying to get their attention. Like, this is what we are on. So there's no threat here. Like, this is what we believe is in the best interest of our residents, is for them to not have tax increases at this time.
I'm
And so if that's what they want to do, then the action may be that we've got to do something and be real.
No.
A la carte. I'm not saying I don't, I just want to be, but I'm very concerned about that. Period. Because if we find ourselves in this place frequently, I've only been on the board for a little over a year.
It's aware
For
of.
some reason, entities are not working and collaborating with us in ways that would serve everybody involved well. And that's distressing because we're just here to represent the people. And if you won't work with us to represent the people, that makes it really, really difficult because I don't think anyone on this board is truth. And what needed to happen for the people, happened for the people all along. But again, we were just protecting the interests of the residents. So to put us in a position right now, you don't want transportation,
Not true.
or you're gonna raise that, that's just it's a way more complex issue than what this is. And then we'll add furthermore to that, if you were to take all the villages that are in the township that are heaped on properties by layers, and you look at the ones that get passed by agreement larger than an entity, and we were very worried about those former Willow Run properties. There are a lot that get passed, like county school millages, other county millages, where they're not going to get a chance to say, no, this would be very similar to this kind of thing. Something's going to get heaped on, or could get heaped on, where they didn't have a choice. So what we've got to do is be strong in that meeting.
Yep.
And then the timeline of, we told you early, whatever that date was where they did the presentation, our meeting, our minutes demonstrate all the meetings that you guys had, where you tried to tell them, this is not, we're not telling them this Thursday, we're not in favor of raising taxes. That has been a consistent message,
3 meetings over.
even when we were looking at the villages that we were taxes. It's distressing, unnecessary.
Madam Chair, I just have a quick question. So if we do withdraw, I guess, this legal contract, what happens then? Ypsilanti terminates their services? I'm sorry, Ypsilanti Township terminates their services?
I know what we did
My understanding is
previously.
we would operate in the same manner that Pittsfield Township would do it, in Superior Township. And
Oh, gotcha.
whatever services that you feel your residents need or are requesting.
Okay. You would pay for it,
specific
like you said.
services,
Okay.
And that, the full menu, some of which you may not have residents that even utilize.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh. Okay.
there's a reason Pittsfield's doing, and Superior is doing what they're doing, because it's working for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still servicing their residents. Nobody's saying that those two entities don't want public transportation. I just think that's the best path for us to follow, is to let them know if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
persist in raising this millage and taxing people over 350% above what they are today, then you leave us no option but to go to this route. We'd like to stay and be a good team member, but you're forcing our hand. You're not giving us any options.
You think they will accept those terms? If they accept it from 2 other areas, would they accept those terms, or do they not even have to accept those terms?
Well, I think they'd be hard pressed not to provide services.
Yeah, I know they're going to lose money, yeah.
If they're providing to other communities.
Mm-hmm.
We're not asking to be treated differently, just
Right.
the same as those communities. And again, I think our withdrawal has a cascading effect, because it's going to keep the city of Ypsilanti and the city of Ann Arbor
Mm-hmm.
out of this millage as well. We don't even know what their positions are on it yet, because I don't think they've even met with them.
Mm-hmm.
Which I found it interesting that they met with us 3 weeks ago, and they still haven't met, and they're not scheduled to meet with those entities, at least the city, based on an email today of April 5th. Why there's so many unanswered questions.
Thank you.
So,
One other thought, I do want to express concern about petitions. I don't know, I haven't seen it, but I am deeply troubled by the work that's been done on the master plan and the zoning, and to create a situation where that's hard without transparency about what's going on. I mean, I don't know the entity that's doing this, but I ask, probably not here, in minutes, to reflect that
If I could just go back to the conversation about the AATA, and I think it's important because I did recommend in my letter today that you consider doing a resolution. And I think, again, I know that Heather and Jimmy have the same information, but I just wanted to at least one more time just point out something before I get into our own millage propositions. But paragraph 7 is the paragraph, Jimmy and Heather, that I emphasized tonight. And Debbie alluded to it again because it's actually entitled Good Relations. And it says, both the township and the AATA recognize their obligation as public bodies to exist harmoniously for the public good. And then it goes on to state that to the extent it's possible, disputes arising out of this agreement, including but not limited to matters concerning expansion, reduction, or alteration of service, and the financial implications thereof are to be resolved through discussions and negotiations by the two bodies. The termination clause that follows that says that this agreement remains in force until mutually terminated or amended. What I was trying to emphasize in the letter and tonight is I think the AATA, even though Mr. Carpenter kind of acknowledged during the November meeting that there was, in fact, this transportation funding agreement, I don't think they've ever lived up to the spirit, letter, and intent of what the agreement was intended to achieve 8 years ago, because this is exactly the kind of situation that was intended to have at least some sit down and conversation about what it is you're recommending, why you agree with it, why we don't agree with it, and to do that. They haven't done that, I think, in a good faith manner. And that's why my letter initially was to say to Mr. Carpenter, you're not following this agreement by not negotiating. And I'm not really sure that what the meeting on Thursday is going to be one that falls within that spirit of negotiations as required in this agreement. But to put in context what we're talking about in terms of dollars, I looked up our 4 millages that we approved in 2021, and the one for garbage is almost identical to the 2.38. The one we approved in this past election last year was for 2.40. So that's about as close as you can come to having a millage. And in our proposition for that, the first year the levy was going to generate estimated revenue of $3,559,721. So those are the types of dollars you're talking about generating for a 2.38 mills. That's basically the equivalent of another Proposition D on township taxpayers for garbage refuse. And in fact, the one that we approved for recreation was 1.00. So it's 2.5 times what we currently levy in this township for recreation, bike paths, sidewalk repair, et cetera, et cetera. So in the context of comparing what this millage they're proposing means to a township that currently levies 1.0059 for recreation, 2.40 for garbage and refuse, you talk about over $3.6 million that's going to be levied out of township taxpayers on something that really has not had any meaningful dialogue, even though the agreement requires them, when you have financial implications of this magnitude, to sit down. It's not, a nice thing to do. It's actually mandated, because when you use the word are to be resolved through negotiations, anyone can tell you that the word are is like will, is equivalent of the word shall. It's not a question of I'll do it if I feel like it. You must do it. And again, I'm not, discouraging any thoughts to go into a resolution, but my initial thinking behind the letter that was sent out was that right now, even going back to March 2nd, at that meeting, we've not had, in my opinion, fulfillment of those negotiations. And so we need to find out if they're interpreting it the same way as I believe it says. Because if it doesn't, then we have a real problem, because at that point in time, then you always have this option, okay, how do we then look at a possible dissolution of this agreement by showing that we have laid the foundation to have negotiations. You've not done this. When you go around the county and have like a PR tour to promote this, that's not negotiation. We're the ones that actually raised our hand and went from .70 mils into this in this agreement with the city of Ypsilanti and the city of Ann Arbor. And we have a stake here that's requires us to be treated accordingly, and to have 600 people surveyed out of 200,000 people and try to say this is my basis for the recommendation to raise $3.6 million in your township. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go. I'm just saying right now, but I can do a resolution, not before Thursday. I can do one before the board meets again, and whatever input you want to direct me to do and put in there. But I think it's clear from the letters that have been sent to them to date that we expect them to negotiate in good faith pursuant to this transportation funding agreement, because, again, when he came here that night in November, if you recall, he didn't bring it up. In fact, I brought it up during the meeting that this was a major policy under a different section of this agreement. They're required to get our input prior to making that decision. That decision was already made when he came to that meeting in November about the 2045 long-range plan. That should have been discussed with the board prior to coming to that meeting in November. So I'm just trying to clarify for everybody's benefit right now. I'll do whatever the board directs me to do, but I do believe that I need to at least impress upon them, or the board, you do, that on Thursday that we expect this to have good faith negotiations. But 2.38 mils is going to generate $3.6 million. It's equivalent to our garbage, 2.5 times that of our recreation millage. It's something that we absolutely, strongly object to. And if it means later on going a different direction, then that's what the board has to decide to do. But that was the reason why I did the letter, because of the meeting that was coming up on Thursday. Doesn't have the full board there, only has really our representative and the Mr. Carpenter, and I think the board chair, our vice chair.
And Doug, when we joined the regional authority, it required the city of Ann Arbor to pass a resolution in favor of the levy. It's when the city of Ypsilanti and its township, when you talk about discussions and negotiation, it's not, we all were around the table. It was like I said, at least 9 months on Mr. Ford really trying to bring everyone together, having lots of transparency and discussion, and then going out into the community with it. And they are rushing this. And so if I heard you correctly, legally, they can't do this.
My personal and legal opinion, I'll say my legal opinion is that I don't think they've read this agreement since it was signed in 2014. I don't think they even knew that we were aware of this agreement being in place when they came to our meeting in November. I think when I brought it up, they said, yeah, you're right, it does exist, and this type of thing. I don't think they're following it. I have called them out on that in that first letter to say, you're not following this, we want negotiations. I've said that again, and that's why he responded initially to say, okay, we can come on over there and meet. That's not the same. In this paragraph, people can read it and walk away with a different meaning, but when it says right now that both the township and the ATA recognize their obligations as public bodies to exist harmoniously for the public good, that means to negotiate this, that means there's a fiduciary responsibility for each of these entities to do the right thing and to have good faith negotiations, not just simply saying, we did 600-person survey. I don't even know how you do a survey by phone. I don't even know who has landlines. And I don't even know how you even do this. In terms of a survey of calling people during the COVID and trying to catch them at home. I don't know how you do that. And to have 600 people out of 200,000, I don't think there's any statistician right now around here that's going to say that's a good sample to base a decision of 2.38 mils of this financial magnitude upon the taxpayers of any of these communities. I mean, obviously, 2.38 for us, we know what it is. It's $3.6 million up. That's what it was in 2021. So, I think that we at the least right now, at least follow the course of the agreement from our end to say, we're demanding negotiations, we're demanding good faith conversations. And if you don't do that, then I think you have to go possibly a different direction. That's just the thought process of what I tried to express in today's letter, because I knew that the Thursday meeting is 2 days away.
And they have a TA meeting Thursday as well. Union. And they sent that letter out, asking to send it to the board so that everyone responds and gives them the position. So, people are telling how we feel was presented, what we said. However you feel, but I heard every board member say, this is not the time to consider this. And then RTA, which is a regional transportation authority, could come back and do a village on top of it. And if that's approved by, what is it, McCollum, Oakland, or Washington? And Wayne, yeah. So there's just, people need to quit raising taxes. This is not the solution. We're in peril right now, and the economy is, and we're just coming, hopefully, out of COVID, which is supposed to start back up in September. I mean, there's so many critical things that we need to address, and raising taxes is not the solution at this time. We'll meet Thursday, and bring a resolution back, call a special meeting if we have to. But we have clear direction when we meet with them on Thursday, which we thought we did before, but it's even clearer now. And hopefully they won't try to paint us as don't support transportation, but
Madam Chair, I would just like to add that I really appreciate, and I'm sure that Supervisor Summer does as well, just us all being able to have a discussion about this collectively as a board so that we, all speak with one consistent voice and are able to advocate that much more, effectively for our residents. So I appreciate that.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Motion Wilson, support Alder to adjourn at 7:53. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Who is it? Jimmy?
Jimmy.
Stan.
So you think the court is?
I didn't realize that was a 2.38 was the same as that.
Well,